And as we were saying, of course, PMQ's very much taken up with the issue of migrants coming across the channel and what to do with them.
But GB News can reveal the shocking rise in the cost of housing asylum seekers in hotels here, contained within the Home Office's annual report.
A hotel in a British town that has been a source of community tension since the first bus arrived. Staff packing belongings into boxes. The lobby, which has hosted hundreds of asylum seekers for 18 months, empty by Thursday morning. A Home Office contractor explaining to residents where the occupants have gone. Not home, not to a five-star alternative, to a former military barracks in Crowborough, East Sussex, where the accommodation is basic, the rural location is deliberate, and the message to anyone still considering a channel crossing is explicit. This is not the destination you were sold. Across Britain in April 2026, 11 asylum hotels closed and were handed back to local communities as part of a coordinated closure programme that Border Security and Asylum Minister Alex Norris confirmed would not stop until every hotel in the estate had been emptied. Hotels were meant to be a short-term stopgap under the previous government, Norris said, but they spiralled out of control, costing taxpayers billions and dumping the consequences on local communities. We are shutting them down. The closures are not the end of the story. They are the most visible consequence of a legislative and policy transformation so significant that European capitals are watching it with a combination of concern, curiosity, and in some cases, quiet admiration. Because Britain is doing something the EU's own member states have been debating for years but cannot agree on. And Britain is doing it in statute, in real time, with numbers that are already changing. This is the story. That's why British Front Media exists. Subscribe now, because what follows is the complete picture. Reason number 1, hotel numbers have more than halved from their peak. From 56,018 asylum seekers in hotels under the previous government to approximately 21,000 by March 2026, saving nearly £1 billion in asylum accommodation costs. The scale of the collapse in hotel use is confirmed by official Home Office data. The number of asylum seekers housed in hotels peaked at 56,018 at the end of September 2023 under the then Conservative government, at a cost that had risen to approximately £50,000 per asylum seeker per year by the 2024 election. By March 2026, that figure had fallen to approximately 20,885, a reduction of more than a third in just 3 months between December 2025 and March 2026 alone. Hotel spending fell from £3 billion in 2023 to 24 to £2.1 billion in 2024 to 25, a reduction of nearly £900 million in a single year. The 11 hotel closures confirmed in April 2026 alone will save a further £65 million per year. Hotel numbers have more than halved since their peak, according to the government's own statement in June 2026. Overall asylum costs have already fallen by nearly £1 billion since this government took office. The hotel estate is not just being reduced. It is being systematically dismantled and replaced with something deliberately less comfortable and deliberately further from urban services. Reason number 2, the Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Act 2025 became law in December 2025, the most significant restructuring of Britain's asylum and border enforcement architecture in a generation. This is the law that shocked Europe. The Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Act 2025 received royal assent in December 2025, establishing a border security command with dedicated law enforcement powers, creating new criminal offences for those who facilitate illegal entry, and fundamentally restructuring the protection status available to asylum seekers in Britain. Most significantly, the Act shifted the UK's asylum system from a model of permanent protection to one of temporary status. Refugees are now granted temporary protection subject to review every 30 months, rather than being placed on a direct route to settlement. That is the provision that has attracted most scrutiny across European capitals. Temporary protection, reviewable, not permanent, changes the entire calculus of the asylum decision. It means recognition is not a gateway to settlement. It means the decision can be revisited. And it means Britain's asylum system now operates on a fundamentally different basis from the interpretation most EU member states apply to the Refugee Convention. one that European governments debating their own asylum reforms are watching as a test case. Reason number 3. 60,000 illegal migrants and foreign national offenders have been removed since the 2024 election, including new returns agreements with Namibia, Angola, and the DRC secured by threatening visa sanctions. The removals record that accompanies the legislative changes is significant. Nearly 60,000 illegal migrants and foreign national offenders have been removed since the 2024 election, the highest removal rates in almost a decade. Net migration is now at its lowest level in half a decade, having fallen by more than 2/3 since its peak. And at the end of 2025, new returns agreements were reached with Namibia, Angola, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, secured after the Home Secretary threatened visa sanctions against 3 countries deemed uncooperative on the return of their nationals, using powers that had existed since 2022 but had never previously been exercised. The threat of visa sanctions, restricting the ability of nationals from non-cooperating countries to obtain UK visas, is a tool that European governments have discussed for years but applied inconsistently. Britain's deployment of the threat produced 3 agreements in the final quarter of 2025. The model is being watched across European capitals that face the same challenge of non-cooperation on returns from transit and origin countries. Reason number 4, a trial of £10,000 voluntary return payments and up to £40,000 per family was launched in March 2026, specifically targeting families living in asylum hotels. The government's hotel closure strategy is not only about enforcement, it includes a financial incentive structure that has no precedent in British immigration policy. In March 2026, a limited trial of higher voluntary returns payments was launched, offering £10,000 per person and up to £40,000 per family to leave the UK voluntarily, targeted specifically at families living in asylum hotels. The scheme is an explicit signal that the government is prepared to pay significantly more to achieve voluntary departure than the previous standard payment, on the calculation that the cost of a voluntary departure is still significantly lower than the cost of continued hotel accommodation at £50,000 per person per year, the legal costs of contested removal, and the long-term public service costs of those whose claims are eventually refused but remain in the country. Whether the trial produces significant uptake at the volumes needed to materially affect the hotel population is the question the government is answering in real time. Reason number 5. 185 hotels remain in use as of April 2026, down from 213 when Labour took office, with asylum seekers being moved to former military sites including Crowborough Barracks, which opened in January 2026 and already houses 350 people. The closure programme is real and accelerating, but the distance still to travel is significant. As of April 2026, 185 hotels remained in use for asylum seekers, down from 213 when the current government took office in July 2024, representing a reduction of 13% in the number of hotels, but a reduction of 29% in the number of people housed in them. The government's preferred alternative is explicit: large, basic accommodation sites on former military land. The Crowborough Military Barracks opened in January 2026 with a capacity of up to 500 people and had already moved up to 350 asylum seekers in by April 2026. The Wethersfield site in Essex and Cameron Barracks in Inverness are operating under the same model. The Refugee Council has raised concerns that moving asylum seekers from unsuitable hotels to remote former military sites stores up problems by repeating approaches that generated legal challenges under the previous government. But the government's position is that basic accommodation away from urban centres is both cheaper and a more appropriate use of public money than hotel rooms in town centres. So here is where Britain stands in July 2026. 20,885 asylum seekers in hotels by March 2026, down from a peak of 56,018. Nearly £1 billion saved in asylum accommodation costs. 11 hotels handed back to communities in April, with more to follow. A Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Act that has abolished permanent protection in favour of temporary status reviewed every 30 months. A provision European governments are studying with deep attention. 60,000 removals since the election. returns agreements with 3 previously non-cooperating African nations secured through visa-sanctioned threats, a voluntary return payment of £40,000 per family on trial, former military barracks housing hundreds of people in basic accommodation designed to communicate a message to anyone still considering the crossing, and 185 hotels still open in 185 communities, waiting for the closure program to reach their postcode. The hotels are emptying. The law has changed. The question Europe is watching Britain answer is whether temporary protection, military barracks, and voluntary return payments together produce the systemic change that permanent protection, hotel contracts, and passive removals never could. Subscribe to British Front Media.